Okay, so beginning in the fall of 1835, after Santa Anna destroys Zacatecas, by the way, Texans were very aware, Anglo-Texans and their Tejano allies, of what had happened in Zacatecas. It's one of the things that pushes them towards revolution. Uh, they realized what Santa Anna had done in Zacatecas, he would try to do to them, which is actually completely accurate. So the problem is the Texans don't have good intelligence. The ones in San Antonio, well, they do have good intelligence, but they ignore it. Tejanos that are living along the border between the Rio Grande and San Antonio, they're spying on Santa Ana and they're sending reports to Travis saying that, hey, there's a big army. This is like early 1836. There's a big army, a Mexican army coming your way, and they're going to destroy you. You need to be aware of this. But Travis was very different from Stephen F. Austin. He didn't work with Tejanos. He didn't bother to learn Spanish. He was contemptuous of Tejanos. In a word, he was racist. So he didn't believe the Tejano spies. He actually thought that they were counterintelligence, that they were working for Santa Anna. So he discounted the reports that Santa Anna was moving up from Mexico City. So even though Tejanos had tried to warn Travis and had tried to warn the folks that were in San Antonio during this period, the less than 200 men, they're ignored. So the problem is that it's just to talk a little bit more about Travis and Tejanos. One of the reasons that Tejanos have been forgotten, the fact that Tejanos defended the Alamo, is that when Travis writes his letter after the siege starts, and we're not there, the siege doesn't start until February 23rd. He writes his famous letter asking for help, where he says victory or death. Probably a lot of you have run into that in Texas history. He says that all the citizens of San Antonio were enemies, which would be Tejanos, except for the ones that had entered into the fort with him, into the Alamo with him, which he said was only 3 people. So Travis's report at the time reflects his, what's the kindest word I can use? His lack of sensitivity, his ignorance towards Tejanos, his prejudice towards Tejanos, because there were Tejanos in the Alamo willing to fight and die for the cause of the Texas Revolution. But Travis very quickly kind of erases them from history, even before the battle is fought, but they were there. We're not quite sure about the exact number that died, but it was either 7, 9, the number, probably not much more than that. But on the other hand, there's only 190 defenders of the Alamo. So it wasn't insignificant. Long story short, Tejanos did fight for the Texans at the Alamo. It wasn't a racial war. It was a war of Federalists versus Centralists, Santa Anna being a centralist and the defenders of the Alamo being Federalist. What happens is that Santa Anna shows up, and he shows up at a very interesting time. And it's a story that's not really told much. February 22nd is Washington's birthday, and it used to be a major holiday along the lines of July 4th. And what happened is that because there wasn't scouting, Travis didn't bother to scout southwest of San Antonio. He was completely unaware that Santa Ana was moving up like a thunderstorm in his direction. There was a big party in San Antonio on February 22nd. A lot of the defenders pawned their weapons so they could get things to drink. And then on the morning of February 23rd, this is the story that the San Antonio innkeeper named Nat Lewis told, that on February 23rd, the morning after Washington's birthday, as the Texas Army in San Antonio got up, many of them were hungover, the first columns of Santa Anna were spotted from one of the towers at San Fernando, which is still there. And he was looking at the direction of the UTSA downtown campus. So what happened is that Travis was completely surprised when Santa Anna shows up in the vanguard of Santa Anna's army. Remember, I said it's going to take a couple of weeks for the whole army to get there, especially the artillery. So Travis just wasn't a very good commander. Even if he hadn't believed the Tejanos, he should have sent out scouts, keeping an eye out on his southern flank, but he didn't. So he's surprised. And what happens is that there is a little bit of a panic in San Antonio. Some of the defenders are running around trying to buy their guns back that they had pawned. They were unprepared. And they decided to make a stand in the Alamo, and they probably had planned on doing that before. Now, remember, the Alamo is the old Mission Valero. That's often forgotten. The Alamo was first a mission. It had big defensive fortifications, large defensive fortifications, and the reason for that is, I hope you realize by now, that there were constant attacks, especially by the Lipan Apache Indians. And so what happens is that the Texans, and Travis especially, make a major and fatal mistake. By going into the Alamo, instead of retreating in the face of the Mexican army, they really sentenced themselves to death. Now, there's a lot of discussion, and I guess there'll never really be a clear answer about whether or not it was worth it for Travis to defend the Alamo. Some people think historians, it would have been a lot smarter for him just to retreat and fight another day, join Sam Houston's army. Other historians argue very strenuously that Travis slowed down Santa Anna's army. He ends up killing a good portion of Santa Anna's army, and that what he did was worth it. So there's a mower outside, so I'm going to stop this podcast and start another one after they stop.